can see, what time is it now? 10:32. We are 2 minutes late, for which I apologise. I'd like to welcome members of the committee, and other people, officers and others who are here. I'd just like you all to go round to my left to introduce yourselves. I'm guessing that looking like this, it looks like we're being live streamed as well. Is that, yeah, fantastic. So if we could all make sure that we use our microphones, so not only can we hear in this room, but anybody who might be watching online or might wish to look later online can hear everything that's being said. I'd be grateful. Thank you. So I think everybody knows who I am, but anyway, I'm Councillor Caroline Lever and I'm Chair of the Standards Committee. So to my left.
Good morning, my name is Julia Jones and I'm a Governance Manager in Democratic Services, and for the purposes of this committee, I clerk this committee.
Karen Strahan, Assistant Director, Democratic Services. I oversee democratic coroners and registration and just supporting the committee today.
Good morning, Carl Hedger, Assistant Director of Legal Services, and I'm one of Maria's Deputy Monitoring Officers.
Hello, I'm Andrew Endole. I'm also an Assistant Director of Legal Services and I am the other Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Good morning, I'm Helen Wyatt, Customer Relations Manager, here to present a report later.
Hello, I'm John Hart. I'm an independent member of the Standards Board.
Sue Davis, County Councillor.
Michael Mitchell, County Councillor, Duardon, Pennsylvania, Exeter.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Maria Price. I'm the Director for Legal and Democratic Services and the Council's Monitoring Officer.
Thank you all very much. When it comes to using these microphones, if we try and make sure they're directed at our mouths, and remember that when we talk away, no one can hear if you move your head. So, sorry, it's over hamming it up demonstration there, but audibility is really important. Okay, so as I know that you all know, and we all struggle to be as polite as we would like when we're doing this, and to look at people who are doing it. And I've been instructed by the people who provide the microphones that you can look at the people who you want to speak to if they're not directly in front of you, but you have to move your head thus so that it still picks up what you're saying. It's a bit mad, but it's the best we can do. Okay, thank you. Looking at the agenda, the very first part we've got is apologies for absence. Do we have any, please?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Bailey, Ledbetter, Ray Hodgins and Ruth Saltmarsh.
Right, lovely, thank you. Declarations of interest then. So members of the committee will declare any interests that they may have in any item to be considered at this meeting prior to any discussion taking place on that item. The other registerable interests of councillors of Devon County Council arising from membership of city, town or parish councils, and I'm guessing, and other local authorities, will automatically be recorded in the minutes. For the details of district and or town and parish, district and or town and parish twin hatters, there is a list on the minutes, no, so on the papers for the meeting, which can be found on the council website. As a matter of clarification for the monitoring officer, do you want us to declare at this point, or if there's just any items which relate to those other authorities?
Just if there's any items that relate to the other authorities, please.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll move on to item 3. Now, this is the minutes of the meeting of the committee held back on the 10th of March 2025. These have been previously circulated. I'm not sure that any of us here were members of that committee other than perhaps John Hart, and you're shaking your head. Now, am I taking this that you were not on that committee or that you disagree with the minutes?
I was never on the committee.
Oh, my apologies.
Sorry, no, it's correct. On that meeting, I was chairing the committee.
That's what I thought.
Terribly something, I was chairing it. The previous 15 years, I never served on the committee.
In which case you're even more valuable here today than usual, because you will be able to tell us perhaps whether you consider these minutes to be accurate.
I'm more than happy for the minutes to be passed.
Lovely. Can I have other councillors in agreement? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Not in agreement. Abstaining. Abstaining. So clerk has that. So I need to initial these and just sign it. Just one moment, please. Right, okay. So we have done that. So we're going to move on to items requiring urgent attention. So this is just a piece of paper which I've not seen until today. Do you need me to read this out?
It's entirely up to you, Chair. I think we highlighted in the training earlier the recent announcement, and obviously since the agenda was published around the new sort of regime. If you want to just highlight that as a title and hand over, then that's absolutely fine.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. So as Head of Democratic Services has just mentioned, under items requiring urgent attention, there is the news that the excuse me, that the government is looking to review and perhaps strengthen the standards regime for councils. I'm going to hand you over to the Head of Democratic Services to perhaps give a bit more detail. Thank you.
I think just obviously we covered this in the training earlier, but I think it's right and proper that we bring it into the public forum. So this is really about government did a previous consultation. As a council, we did not respond to that. And the reason for that is we promoted it across members, but I think as officers, it was inappropriate that we gave comments on things like suspension of councillors, which are some of the things that are being talked about in the new regime. So as a council, we didn't submit a sort of corporate response. So I think this is against a sort of national background where things are more tricky. We've got things like Operation Ford, LGA sort of debate not hate campaign. So the whole arena of sort of councillor, sort of how councillors are treated and councillor behaviour has been brought sort of more into the fore. I think again, against a background, people will remember many years ago when we had a National Standards Board for England who dealt with a lot of councillor complaints. And then we morphed into the Localism Act where we simply had a mechanism for dealing with complaints through to the processes we have now. But I think the government are looking to put victims of misconduct at the centre of the new system. And I think one of the frustrations across the piece really is a lack of meaningful sanctions and safeguards. And you know, Andrew Yendall quoted a sort of case, a very difficult case for us as council a number of years ago, and I think there were some difficulties around the sanctions that we couldn't do. So the focus is very much on a stronger regime in terms of what sanctions we have, making it not so much as a toothless tiger that we've got now. So the measures it's looking to include is a mandatory code of conduct. Again, that may or may not be welcomed, but I think what some members find, particularly Twin Hatters, is that the codes are slightly different. You know, it's down to local authority determination on codes. There is going to be that requirement for principal authorities to convene a formal standards committee. So again, we're already in that place, whether we need to tweak the terms of reference in light of any sort of new requirements coming forward. There will be the requirement to offer to support to people during the investigations into code of conduct allegations, and that's to both the complainant and also the subject member. There is that right of review that Councillor Mitchell referred to earlier, and I've already mentioned they're talking about the powers to suspend, and that's for a maximum of 6 months for serious code of conduct breaches. But again, we don't know what that looks like, what is classed as a serious breach of the code, and you've got other factors to bring into the equation. You know, is it a police matter? So I think there's going to be a lot of work here for the committee to undertake. And this is what the monitoring officer was talking about earlier, was a new disqualification criteria for any elected member subject to a maximum period of suspension that happens more than once within 5 years. So again, that's something very, very new and something we've not seen before. And also the creation of a new national appeals function as well. So they're really the highlights in terms of what the new regime will look like. So clearly it's a real shift in position. It's a huge shift. So it'll be interesting for me to see what's in statute, what we have to do, what we must do, and actually what will be for local determination for us to bring to you. Is that helpful?
That's extremely helpful. Thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions? Nope. Okay, in which case, I think we're just noting this, aren't we? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So duly noted. Thank you. Okay, so I will move on to, where are we? Agenda item 5, which is the ethical governance framework monitoring, pages 1 to 2 of your papers. And I'm going to invite the governance manager, Julia Jones, to introduce this report. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an overview of the monitoring activities that have been undertaken by the co-opted members and the Standards Committee to ensure compliance with the Council's ethical governance framework. Since the previous update, which was in March, they've attended a range of meetings, both virtually and in person, to observe the standards of conduct, transparency and adherence to agreed protocols. Overall, the feedback indicates that meetings are well chaired and discussions are constructive, and members are demonstrating appropriate conduct and engagement. However, there are some practical issues that have been noted, such as some technical difficulties at the start of meetings and challenges in viewing participants and during when there is remote attendance. I have missed off one of the feedback forms in the report, so I wanted to acknowledge that, and that was with regard to the Adults and Health Adult Scrutiny Committee meeting, which took place on the 22nd of September. And just wanted to raise a couple of comments that I haven't included in the report, which said that the agenda covered the important topics and the presentations were clear and informative, although the meeting started slightly late and it lasted over 3.5 hours. But overall, it was very positive and the tone of discussions remained friendly and informative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from committee members?
Just going to ask, is this a part of a rolling programme, and do the members on these committees know in advance that they're being monitored? Because I wonder if that assists behaviour.
Yeah, yes, it's part of a rolling programme that we basically have this monitoring standards monitoring rota, which we circulate around to our co-opted members, and they choose which committees out of a range of ones that we give them that they can come along and attend. We let the chair know in advance, usually of the meetings, and it's included on the chair's notes when people are attending meetings, and they're asked to introduce themselves at the beginning of the meeting as well, so members are also aware.
Thank you. And actually, my going on about using these microphones is partly in response to this report, because sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to use I mean, we could all have loud, booming voices, but particularly for people watching online or afterwards. So forgive me going on and on and on about that same subject. All happy to note the report? Please indicate if you are. Yep, thank you very much. Report duly noted. Thank you. Okay. So moving on then to agenda item 6, which is the local government and social care ombudsman complaints. We have Helen Wyatt here. Thank you for coming along, Helen.
Morning.
As the customer relations manager, and I believe you will be introducing this report.
Yes,
you.
on behalf of Maria. So thank you for having me today. Appreciate it. I'm going to give you a quick overview of my report. Please shout if you think I'm not speaking into the microphone correctly, but hopefully I've positioned it well enough. I'll give you a quick overview, and then if anyone's got any questions, I'll be happy to answer. So I've outlined at the beginning on page, I think it's page 3 of your pack, that this is essentially in response to a letter that the Ombudsman sent through to Donna Manson, our Chief Executive. She sends, the Ombudsman sends one to every local authority every year. They have changed their approach recently, I've outlined. So in previous years, we'd get a more detailed letter, but now they only send a more detailed letter if there's something of significance to report. They haven't done that for Devon County Council. They have just alerted us to the fact that our data is published. But nonetheless, I have written a report to talk about said data. So that's what this report is. So moving to page 5, I believe. I'm trying to keep track because my report doesn't quite line up with your agenda. So I'm just, I may point to the wrong page numbers, apologies. But I'm just going to talk about section 3.1, which is about the number of complaints received. Very briefly, just to highlight that 165 cases received in 2024-25. I should say this covers the reporting year 24-25, so from April 24 to March 25. So it doesn't cover anything wider than that. But 165 cases in that period of time, and then that's slightly up from the previous year, which was 151 cases. It's not a significant increase, but one to mention nonetheless. As you'll see from the table that's there in 3.1, the majority of cases are around inclusion and learning services, followed by climate change, environment and transport, which is usually related to highways matters that the Ombudsman tends to not get involved with. They tend to forward them on to the court, well, direct the complainant to go to the court. On the next page, in terms of findings, let me just get to the right point. So there were 85% of cases upheld. That is slightly below similar councils' average of 89%. So we're roughly on average. That's not a significant difference, but we're on par with what the Ombudsman considers to be similar councils to us, i.e. upper tier local authorities. But we do have a higher number of complaints per capita than our peers. It's unfortunate, but that's a fact of the matter. We had one public report issued in the reporting year. That has already been brought to a previous standards committee. I've included the links for you. So if you want to have a read, if you haven't already, that was discussed at length with officers from the relevant services in a previous committee. Thankfully, we haven't had another one to report since that time, which is very good news. Positive trends in remedies. I think it's good to mention that we had, it's still not a significant number. I'd like to see this increase, but 14 cases upheld by the Ombudsman, but no further action was needed as the Ombudsman considered the council had already remedied those satisfactorily. That is a slight increase from the previous year. I'm hoping that we will continue to see that increase over the coming reporting periods. Financial remedies, just to highlight, it's very positive that in the reporting year that the Ombudsman's recommended financial remedies fell from 72,000 in the previous year to 54,000. This is primarily linked to education and send delays. The Ombudsman has some standard financial remedies that they will recommend in certain cases. So it's expected to a point, but it's positive that that has reduced. That would tend to suggest to me that the send improvement plan is certainly starting to embed, although it is obviously continued work in progress. We, in the service improvements, I've done some analysis of the types of categories of send complaints, which hopefully is interesting to you, just so you can start to see where the types of complaints fall in relation to send. Again, this would hopefully feed into the picture around the improvement plan, and I will be doing more on this as we move forward. When I come back to a future standards committee, you'll be able to start to see more of a pattern around that, and perhaps it will indicate where there's further work that send colleagues can focus on. Response times. In the year, services met the internal deadlines that we set 68% of the time. This does require some improvement. Services are required to provide information to myself as the Ombudsman Link Officer and my team. We try to give them a date earlier than the Ombudsman's set deadline, and then that allows us to respond within that required time. So my team has responded 81% of the time in time, and services do need a little bit of encouragement to improve those timescales. Some benchmarking undertaken indicates that Devon's uphold rate is certainly not the highest, but as mentioned before, our volume of complaints per capita is among the top 3 of our comparator authorities, and our early resolution rate is at 9% lower than our peers, unfortunately, but as mentioned before, hopefully that will start to improve as well. Finally, just a quick point around the improvement actions. Looking at developing new KPIs for complaint handling. This will feed into the general corporate plan and our directorate plan, which is all under development at the moment. And very importantly, we're continuing to have direct engagement with the Ombudsman and her office around key improvement actions that the authority is taking, such as around the send improvement plan, so that if the Ombudsman is more aware of those direct actions, that allows them to not have to make so many service-related recommendations, as they're aware that work is already ongoing. So I think that's probably enough of me speaking for now. If anyone has any questions, I will be happy to try and answer.
Committee members, Councillor Mitchell, please.
Thank you, Chair. As has already been highlighted, I think the 2 quotes on page 7 and 8 are the concerning ones. One of the higher number of us compared to our other authorities we're measured against, that we're high on that situation, and the low satisfactory remedy rate at 9% compared to 30% for other authorities. But I think the key issue there, and it's difficult because we're talking in hindsight about what has happened in the past, not where we are now and where we hope to be, hopefully very shortly in the future, is the position of early intervention. Mm-hmm. It does seem to me, and this is just reading from this report, that often there might be a rush to the local government ombudsman rather than trying to from the from the complainant, shall we say, feeling a dissatisfaction with what internally they can achieve within the authority. And I would hope, looking at your improvement action, that at some stage, either to this committee or potentially to a appropriate scrutiny committee, there could be some review of the internal processes. So we actually look at trying to cut down the number of referrals to the local government ombudsman. And I would be interested to see, as a member, what advice we give or what we printed in regard to complainants, to show them that we are here to listen and to help and to resolve the problem, rather than saying, oh, please go away and go to the local ombudsman and leave it that way. I think we've got to be more open in the approach, and hopefully a change of attitude and working procedures within the authority would help in that matter, because we don't want people going to the local ombudsman. We want to resolve the issues here. Thank you.
Would you like me to resume?
I would be very grateful. But before you do, I'd just like to welcome Anne Mayers to the meeting, who is one of our independent people, I believe. Welcome, Anne. So back to you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. So I should probably say that when a service responds to a complaint, we're obliged to signpost a complainant at that point to the Ombudsman. So we have to put that information in there at that point. But certainly, I think there's work to be done to resolve concerns prior to people even entering the complaints procedure. And I think that's where we need to focus the efforts. Going to be working, currently am, but working even closer with SEND colleagues, senior managers. We've got some work this week, in fact, to start looking and unpicking the process and what we can do differently, because whilst it's frustrating for complainants, it creates extra work for services as well when you have all these additional complaints, and it would be so much better for everyone, complainants, customers, services, to resolve things much earlier, because that would take pressure off of everybody. So certainly, absolutely agree with you on that point. There needs to be work earlier in the process, and I hope to be able to come to a future committee and give you a positive picture in that respect.
Just for clarification, would that come to this committee or more appropriately to a scrutiny committee?
I would hope both, but I'm likely to be guided by the relevant chairs of relevant committees, I think.
Thank you. And indeed, I would be guided both by committee as to what this committee wants, but also by the head of democratic services as to what the most effective route forward is for that.
I mean, it's certainly within the terms of reference of this committee, sort of the oversight and monitoring of complaints and trends and things like that. Obviously, scrutiny sets its own work programme, so it would be a matter for the chair of the relevant scrutiny to see if it wanted to look at any aspect in more detail. What we don't want to do is duplicate, so maybe there's different aspects that each committee can look at.
Thank you. So I guess my question then becomes about the timeliness of bringing something back to this committee, which of course will depend a little bit on what happens elsewhere.
Yes, I'm happy to come whenever you would like me to come, I think is the shortest answer. So I'm happy to come. We've had this kind of debate over previous committees about what's an appropriate frequency. I'm guided by how helpful you would find me coming to each meeting or just annually, guided by you, really. I don't mind.
Any comments on that from committee at this point? No, or indeed any more questions?
Just in regard to the data, do we have access to this data presumably in advance of the local government commission, local government ombudsman doing their annual report? In other words, are we tied into their annual report and their cycle, or can we design our own cycle, say 6 months, 9 months, or?
We can, yes, we can design our own cycle. So the Ombudsman publishes their data as a sense check for us, really, so that we can make sure that what we've recorded roughly aligns with them. It won't ever be 100% because sometimes they'll record cases that they won't inform us about if they've just signposted someone to another organisation, for example. But no, we can. I can come to every meeting, or I can come to. I apologise, I can't remember how often you meet. Is it 3 times a year?
3 times a year.
So I could come to each of those and report on the previous period up to a point in time before the meeting. I'm happy to do that if that's helpful, give you a more regular update.
I mean, I think given the changes which are going on. I think it would be interesting for the committee to do that. I mean, one thing I would ask, if that's okay with the rest of you guys, actually as chair I could just decide, but I'd rather actually that I had your support in that. Any thoughts on that, contrary to just a quick update at each meeting? Oh, okay, in which case we'd be most grateful. And I'm sure that actually a bit of continuity will help us keep track in our minds about what the pattern is, what's going on.
Yes.
Thank you.
May I ask a very quick question of clarity? Is that okay? Would you like me to cover all types of complaints or just ombudsman? Because I've just focused on ombudsman for this report, as that was the request.
I would say, having heard, just done the training, I'm going to hand over to Maria in a place, but my gut feeling is that I think this committee would expect to know if there were serious complaints, but actually we have monitoring here about a number of complaints which have been found no breach, but I'm going to hand you over to Head of Legal and Democratic Services, Director of.
I think the background of this report is it comes to you on the Ombudsman, and that's something that we agreed as a council that we bring to the Standards Committee. I think it is Ombudsman only that's dealt with at this committee, so it may be that other complaints and other areas are reported in other places, so audit would see certain things, scrutiny would see certain things. But I think Ombudsman is a specific reference that was brought here for you to consider as a committee. So I'd just give a little bit of a probably health warning in starting to bring every complaint here. So it might be that you see the more serious ones that could go to Ombudsman. That's probably the better route for you to consider, so you're not repeating work of other committees. I think it'd be my advice. Thank you, Chair.
Does that give you the clarity that you'd like?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think we would like to agree that that's what happens, and we'd be most grateful for your assistance in making sure we all understand what's going on. Thank you. One question I would have, but maybe I'm going to speak after the committee, is that looking at the table of at the end of section 3.2, the more I looked at that table, the more questions I had. And it was exactly for, I mean, I'll just ask you just one really quick question, which is I see that there are total not investigated, total investigated. Do we know how the Ombudsman decides which they investigate and what they don't investigate, for example?
Yes, they will not investigate when they believe there isn't value in doing so. So they might see that something's gone wrong, but it's very simple to see that it's quite a small matter. There isn't a major injustice to the complainant. So, for example, that's the kind of thing that they will include there. And it will be them balancing the need to use their resources effectively for public good. So that's a brief answer.
And a helpful answer. Thank you very much. Any further questions, Councillor Mitchell?
Just one that raises from the chair's position. Could you clarify? Do we automatically get notified of every single complaint that goes to the commissioner, so
Yes.
that we've got a complete log, even the ones that aren't investigated or followed through in any way, we are aware of them? And
Correct.
And so
Yes.
we can categorize them and look and feed them into our system and our analysis.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We have sight of all of them. The only ones, as I mentioned, that we wouldn't know about are where somebody has said it's Devon County Council, but it isn't. And the Ombudsman has picked that up very early on and signposted elsewhere. But otherwise, yes, anything about Devon County Council, I'll be made aware of.
Thank you very much. So, in which case I'll just ask that this report is noted. All those in favour? And you are not in agreement, or? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
As it's for noting, I think general consensus is fine. Yeah, I think when we're coming to look at things like code of conduct, we will sort of implement the voting arrangements that we've got for co-opted members, but for general consensus agreement and noting, I don't think it's necessary, John.
Really sorry. There's a technical issue on this one. Okay. Not sure, I should automatically vote on this, am I correct?
No, this is for noting, so it is simply for noting. So I think a general consensus that it's noted is absolutely fine.
Thank you very much. May I also just comment that it was really helpful having Appendix 1 actually identifying some of the comments from the Ombudsman separated out by service area and area of complaint. So that was tremendously helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So I think the report is duly noted, and I will move us on now to agenda item 7, local determination of complaints. And the Assistant Directors of Legal and Democratic Services, Andrew Yendall and Carl Hedger, will introduce this report. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair. Since the beginning of May of this year, we've received 17 new Code of Conduct complaints. By contrast, we received 2 in the same period in the previous year. So of the 17 complaints, 14, it was found no further action. There was 1 breach found, and that was resolved through a local resolution. And we have 2 that are awaiting further information from the complainant. What isn't in this report is that we have received 6 new complaints last week, so that was after the papers were published. Are there any questions on this report?
So it doesn't look like it. Thank you very much. One thing just for accuracy for the minutes is that in the printed papers at the top of agenda item 7, it says 10th of November, and clearly we are the 17th of November. So that one tiny little typo. So no, yes, Councillor Mitchell, question, please.
Just what, as I say, you've got the situation where the vast bulk of these are not, or just no further action in regard to that. Clearly, I don't know the background to any of them because I haven't put one in, or I've been subject to one as far as I know in this instance, like yourself, in regard to this. Even where there has been a decision to take no further action, is any feedback given to either the member or the group leader within the group, where sometimes, half a dozen of these could relate to one member, I don't know. In other words, where you're getting a pattern of complaint, not to say a pattern of behaviour, but a pattern of complaint. And also in the same way, it could be that all of these were made by the same complainant, that we've got one person who's hyperactive on complaints. So do we monitor that in that respect? And again, feed that back if appropriate to the group so that discussions can take place.
So the answer in brief is I meet with the group leaders. So these are recorded as the formal ones that have come through as standards complaints. The forms have been filled out, they've been through a decision notice, parties have been informed. There are also probably just as many where actually I will have been aware of a situation. I've spoke to the group leaders and they'll be aware there's complaints. And so yes, I think it's the answer that you're looking for so far as our group leaders aware of perhaps some of what's going on and some of the wider issues. Yes, because I speak to them. And there'll be a number that have been resolved before they've ever got to a complaint that don't make the way here. I think that's what you're asking me.
But does that take place as a joint meeting of leaders or separately with each group so that others are aware of what's on?
Separately, because obviously if there's no breach, it'd be completely inappropriate to be going through a process and informing lots of members of lots of complaints about people. A number of these are member against member, which I would point out, which is more than unhelpful. And I can't stop members speaking about various things to each other, but no, I would not share confidential details of a complaint with all members. Quite appropriate for me to speak to group leaders, but it wouldn't go any far further than that, and it would always be on an individual basis.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, I don't recall in the induction training or some of the training that we've done about code of conduct, etc., about making complaints. Is there specific training on this?
So most definitely in the member code of conduct training, we did pick up the complaints, so it will have been in there.
Mhm.
More than happy to take you through as groups on
Mm.
complaints forms and the process, but yeah, it was definitely picked up in the code of conduct training, but I dare say the amount of training that new members went through at the time, it would probably quite easy to miss, because we'll have gone through elements of what is a breach. We did scenarios and things with you from memory.
Mm.
And there'll have been links to go onto the complaint forms and the decision notices and that process.
Mm.
But it probably got a little bit lost.
Yeah.
So more than happy to pick that up with members if that's something that you would like.
Yeah, I think it could be emphasised with certain members and especially new councillors. And it should be emphasised that complaints don't very often go anywhere. You're just wasting people's time a lot of the time. So I think probably people need to be reminded of that.
So more than happy to pick up with individual groups and do some of that specifically on the actual complaints process.
Any more questions? Thank you for that. Any more questions? In which case, is this report noted by the committee? It is by me. Yes, lovely. Report duly noted. Thank you very much. And moving on to agenda item 8, debate not hate survey. And again, we have the Assistant Director of Legal and Democratic Services, Karen Strachan, to introduce this item. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Another report for the committee to note. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the sort of LGA, the Debate Not Hate campaign that was launched in 2022. So obviously, we're aware of its background, what it aims to do, and it's around the awareness of councillor roles, encouraging healthy democratic debate. Although it's robust sometimes and not everyone agrees with each other, it's the healthy debate that matters. So the survey they did in 2025, it's the third one they've done. Disappointingly, 11% as a response rate is not brilliant, but I think the key findings, they're outlined at section 3 of the report. There was 73% of councillors that reported experiences of abuse or intimidation within the past 12 months, and it goes on to say the nature of that abuse. It could be verbal, obviously online, social media is quite a big part of what members sort of experience. And all of this together, it's the impact on democracy that I think people are most concerned about. And obviously its impact on individuals, councillor wellbeing in its widest sense. So as part of that campaign, the LGA made a number of recommendations, and that's really around a zero tolerance policy, having processes in place, the partnerships with the police, risk assessment, and also support for individuals. So as a council, we've done the majority of that. So there is a zero tolerance approach. We formally signed up to the Debate Not Hate campaign through a notice of motion at council. There are now clear reporting mechanisms, and that can be via a QR code through inside Devon, and we've put the information on the member SharePoint site as well. So that is now monitored. We have got those link ups with the police, and we've done some member training sessions as well on Operation Forward. A number of you have sat through those sessions, and also links in with sort of MPs and government. Alongside that, our code of conduct, I think when we looked at this initially, there are now explicit provisions in our code around bullying and harassment. We undertake annual reviews, and actually our risk register, that's something I get monthly, and I regularly update that with actions that this committee have taken, things we're taking outside of that process. And one example is we've actually put ourselves forward to have an audit of our processes around member safety and well-being, and so that work has just started. So may well be in touch with group leaders. That's what I've recommended. I said you really need to be talking to the members and their experiences, because it's all very well me saying, oh, stats say this is what we've heard, but actually speaking directly to the members on that. And also the team have worked really hard on developing the SharePoint site, so bringing in a lot of these LGA resources around Debate Not Hate, again, how you report, the linkages with the police, and all the things that the LGA advocate. So again, this is simply a report for information to let you know that third survey's been done, and what we've done as a council in response and continue to do.
Thank you very much for that, Karen. Questions from committee members, please. Councillor Mitchell.
Just going to comment that this is a societal issue. I don't think we should see it as a specific Devon issue, although you do see elements of what's happening nationally within Devon. And I think the greatest concern in society, when I came into local government in 1970, I was quite happy to put my address, telephone number, have people call around my house to discuss issues. Now I'm told not to publish my address, not to publish my telephone number, and that's recommended both on the ballot papers. When you're putting paper, you appear on the ballot papers, you live somewhere in Devon or whatever. So that lack of contact of relationship to a community is becoming more difficult. And the greatest worry, of course, is social media, where people believe there's a sort of anonymity. They can write and say whatever they want, and there's no repercussions because people don't know who they are or whatever. And I think people have to be aware that actions and words have consequences. And I think it's the tone of debate in society. We've become more polarized, sadly, because of the way information is disseminated these days, and the lack of trust in some mainstream media, which hasn't been helped recently by certain actions by the BBC, for example. But at the same time, we're getting this sort of wild west of misinformation, and it does come down to us at local level as well. And sadly, it's used by some political parties and some individuals to spread misinformation, and which is to be deplored, I think, in many ways, because collectively we are all volunteers. We're all giving of our time on behalf of our communities, irrespective of the party or not party that we don't belong to. We've done it in order to serve. And I think what is happening at the moment is reprehensible. But what the solution is, I think, is beyond us as a county. It's up to government and politicians at a national level to take a lead as well. And I think the smartphone ban and young children and smartphones, I'm not fed up with it, but I walk around town and I constantly never see anybody's face. I just see the back of a phone, and they seem to have a built-in radar system that when you get within a foot of them, they can move slightly away from you. And years ago, if people had been walking down the street talking to themselves, you'd be somewhat concerned for their welfare. Now it's just a standard practice, apparently. So as an elderly person, I have no more to say on the matter. Thank you.
Councillor Davis, thank you.
I enjoyed listening to those comments from Councillor Mitchell. I've only been doing this for 6 months, but no, it's interesting to hear what he's got to say, and I agree with a lot of it. I would say, though, that we all come into this position knowing exactly what's out there, and all of those times that I've been called a Nazi and all sorts of strange things on social media, I don't take that personally. And I think that's really how we've got to approach this. I'm a great advocate of free speech, and people should be able to say what they think. So, and it's down to us to how far we want to be disturbed by that. For me personally, I'm not at all. So.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. One, I'm really sorry to pick this up, but the report talks about the LGA, and going back to a previous agenda item, the use of acronyms was suggested. It's helpful if we identify what we mean by it. For anyone who doesn't know, LGA is Local Government Association. And I think what I would just reflect in terms of people being able to say what they think, I have a very close relative who, as a councillor, has had death threats issued against them, and that causes real harm. So I think that free speech is one thing, but actually responsible speech is a more helpful way forward. So I leave that hanging. John Hart, would you like to comment, please?
I wanted to say about 3 years ago, I was put under police protection for
Sorry,
9 months.
could you just move your microphone so it's pointing at you? Thank you.
About 3 years ago, I was put under police protection for about 6 to 9 months. County solicitor knows I burst out laughing and told them to go away, but they were adamant that they wanted me protected. So these things do happen, unfortunately. But it took me 6 months of those 9 months to persuade them to take away the panic buttons they put it through my house, because I was fearful my grandchildren were going to find something and press it in the wrong moment, and I was going to be embarrassed. But every time we had a power cut, I was instantly sent a message. The power is not working. Can you check the machine? It's not the way I like to live. It's not the way I've ever dreamt I would live. And As it wasn't necessary, but it was their choice to come to see this council to warn me. So these things do happen. That's really what I'm saying.
I'm not
Councillor
denying,
Councillor Davis.
yeah, I'm not denying they don't happen. They do happen all the time, but they don't just happen to councillors. They happen to members of the public as well, and they happen to people in society. So at last week's procedures committee, I spoke about a clerk who's being harassed by a member of the public, and actually she's put her complaint to the police. I took the complaint up with the police myself because this girl is living in intimidation, and the police said to me, nothing to answer, nothing to do there, nothing to see there. This chap is willing and free to carry on harassing her in the street, and they're going to do nothing about it. And she's a member of the public. So why would we be any different as councillors? Why should we expect any different treatment?
I mean, I would just comment on a personal note that you know, as councillors, we put our head above the parapet. We are community leaders. We are perhaps more visible, but actually nobody, councillors, employees, members of the public, whoever they are, should be in a position where it's okay to feel at physical risk or risk of difficulties in terms of mental health and impact, you know. So and I think we as councillors, we can lead by example, and I think we all do. I would tend to agree with Councillor Mitchell about, in the time that I've been a councillor, which is quite a long time now, that it has got more febrile. It's felt more dangerous out there. It's only in the last year I know I've got members of Community Speed Watch that have been pushed over into bushes by people because they're angry about something that's been going on. That's not acceptable behaviour, and you know, and I think that we as a council have a responsibility to make sure that we look at our own processes, that we as councillors, we look at our own behaviours, and that we support people that we come across who maybe will bring concerns to us about stuff that's happened to them, like you have been doing, Councillor Davis. But I think it would be naive of us to think that things are not more difficult out there, and that we have our part to play. Thank you. Maria.
Thank you, Chair. And just to highlight, yes, it is much more of a difficulty for our staff as well. It's one of our highest risks at the moment. So it's something that's very much in front of audit, that we've got on the risk register as really high risk. County Hall is very much a place of protest now, as it should be. You know, people have a right to have their say, but it's doing that appropriately and making sure we have the right measures in place. So it's definitely something that is very, very high on our risk agenda. Just wanted to make reference as well to the sensitive register. So completely accept that some members are perfectly happy and shoulder some of the abuse that comes their way, but you don't have to. And certainly home addresses, home phone numbers, come and speak to me as MO if we're both satisfied that there is that real risk of violence or intimidation from sharing it. We do have the sensitive register, where we can remove from the public register. You're still declaring, it's still held by myself, but I've never done so many of those requests as I have recently. I think they've gone up something like 1,000%, which really does show you how it has got for the public and got for our councillors, because as the Chair said, you have got your heads above the parapet. It's a very small percentage of people, but it can be so damaging, and you don't have to shoulder it. We have got processes in place that do protect our councillors. There are things we can do. Democratic Services do have a stock of even personal alarms, which is really unfortunate. We have to use them now, but our members, again, we have got a stock of those. Members do have them. It's something that we want you to be safe. And it is a very small percentage of people that are doing this that just cause such harm. But really do want to plug back to the sensitive register and the measures that we have in place to protect. We are very, very closely linked with police and our partners. So Karen's already highlighted the work and the joined up work we've done there. I also have a monitoring officer protocol with them. So in the rare circumstances John referred to earlier, that something does go horribly wrong, that there is a real threat, there is a route there for me to be able to escalate things to ensure that you're protected. I do want to say it is very, very rare. you know, that threat is where it's not something that I want you to worry about, particularly walking down the street, but it happens. And when it does, we have got measures to put in place that can help you in those situations.
Thank you very much. Just one question I have is question point 4 in section 4, Devon County Council actions, says partnership with police. The council is committed to working with the local police to create a joined up mechanism for reporting threats and to take a preventative approach. I'm glad that we're committed. It doesn't say that the police are committed to responding to that. And I wondered if perhaps you might just like to expand on that point.
So I've just made reference to the monitoring officer protocol. That's one that I have with the police. It's something that we jointly worked upon and all had input in, along with the districts as well. So it wasn't just myself that was with that, and Plymouth and Torbay and Cornwall. So it's something that was very, very joined up with the MOs. That does allow us to escalate on those that are more serious, very similar to what we would do with MP. So, you know, your political figures, your high ranking, it gives us that kudos. But we also have Operation Forward, which I think a number of members have actually been involved in those briefings with the police, that again, they have committed and they are joined up and working with us on that process. So yeah, that they've been absolutely great actually on anything that I've raised with them. They've immediately responded and put things in place. So yeah, I would say that it's more than just us committing. The police have been absolutely great, good partners.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Oh, Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment to make. This seems like quite an important committee, and there's very few of us here. I'm not quite sure on the rules on quorum, but does it only count if you're doing votes?
No, we're quorate.
You are?
Yes.
There's only 2 committee members here.
There's 3.
Sorry, Chair. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
But actually, it's a really good point, and I think for all councillors, we all sign up to be active councillors.
Yes.
And if any councillors that we know are not turning up to committee, it is always a good thing to remind them that it really is imperative for the council to be able to carry out its work, for people to turn up to committees and hopefully to have read the papers and to contribute to the working of the committee. I could say that this is not the case for any of us sitting here today. And Maria.
Also, I think yesterday, a lot of councillors travelled up for the county councillor network. So they're actually quite a bit off site. I think they're coming back tomorrow for cabinet and various things. So we've probably got quite a few that aren't present for that very purpose, have just coincided with each other at the moment, which may have contributed to the attendance today.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to ask any more comments from committee members. In which case, I'm going to ask us to note this agreement. Note the report, even not just my comment. Yes, note the report. Thank you. Duly noted. In which case, can I thank all of you for your contribution to this meeting, and I call the meeting closed. Thank you.